Hello and welcome to another tutorial on the Bible Online Learner. In this tutorial, I'm going to introduce you to the general workflow that every teacher is following. I am logged in with both my student account as well as my teacher account. It's very important that, at least that's what I would suggest, that you have two accounts, a student account with your name and a teacher account, so that you can test things that you have created for a potential student with your own account. But we'll get more into this at a later moment. So we are now logged in with my teacher account here on the Bible Online Learner. The first thing that you want to do is go to My Data and make sure that under Profile you have set up made up the right decisions. Under preferred language, I'm teaching here in an English-speaking environment. I will use English, and the preferred variant you should set up. We are teaching here at Andrews University, so we have a specific variant set up on the Bible Online Learner for our institution, so I am choosing this variant. So once you have done this, you can go back and start creating exercises. When you create exercises, you obviously are thinking of a classroom environment. Thus, the first thing that you want to set up is under administration, the classes. So you click on classes, and there you see a whole list of classes that are available. In order to create a new class, you click on Add New Class and give that class a name. That's the class name. You could provide a class password that you share with the persons that are going to enroll in that class. You can also define an enrollment day, but usually I don't use those fields. Okay, good. When we click on OK, you will now see that our class is appearing. And we have to look it up. Beginners here, Beginner Hebrew, November 2025. Here's your class that I've just set up. Let's delete this class. I just want to make it show up at the very top. So I'll delete that class again and create a new one. So we go to the bottom of the page, add new class, and let's call it demo class. Okay, good. So now we have the demo class up here. We can now assign users to that class. When you click on Assign Users, you will get access to the entire user database of the Bible Online Learner. You can identify your names. For example, let's say student Glanz. Here's the Scotty Baker student. We could click on the student and he will now be enrolled in your class. But I advise that you let students do that by themselves. So let's do this as a student. As you know, I'm enrolled here as a student Glanz. I now want to enroll in this class that the teacher Glanz just created. So I go under my data to enroll an unroll class, and there I will be able to see the new class that has been set up, 0 demo class. Now I want to enroll. Enrolled in several classes now as a student. One of those classes is a 0 demo class. Let's get this out of the way and let's go back here to us as teachers. So under my data, I could now, under administration, I can go to classes. I go to my demo class, and I should be able now to see the student that just enrolled in my class. That was the Glanz student. Here you see student Glanz. Yes, he is in my class. Okay, good. Now, after you've set up a class, you want to create a folder in which you will place all your exercises and probably exam materials that you want to use in your class. So let's go to Manage Exercises. Under Manage Exercises, you choose your institution. If you have already an institution folder listed here, choose that folder. Don't create a new one. In my case, I am at Andrews University, so I'm using this institutional folder. And let's create a new folder that we call dummy folder, 0 dummy folder. Okay, so you'll see here the dummy folder appearing here. So what we have done so far is we have created a class and we have created a folder that we want to use in our class. So we can click on dummy folder, because that's where we will have all our exercises for our demonstration class. and we now choose Edit Visibility. Under Edit Visibility, we can look up our class that we just created. Here's the demo class, to give it access to this folder. This is very important. This is an important step because only when you do so, you can actually start also grading and tracing the performance of your students, also provide exams and allow them to be automatically graded as well. So the folder in which you are placing all your exercises and exam materials need to provide access to the class that you are teaching. So, okay, so now my class can use this folder. Now let's go to the next step. We want to create an exercise. You can click here on create exercise. You choose your database that you're using for exercises. Obviously, when you're teaching Greek, you want to use the Greek Neslalan text. I'm now giving as an example the Hebrew exercises for an Hebrew course. So we choose the Hebrew database. And now you basically can start creating exercises. You can give it a title here. For example, this is a simple vocab exercise. And you have the option to format your input. Let's say you are tested on your vocabulary knowledge of the 10 most frequently appearing Hebrew words. Okay, so we have provided a definition here for the exercise. Now we can go to passages. You can either select the entire Old Testament as your data pool, or you can specify certain verses out of your data pool. So in this case, let's say we choose just the first 10 verses out of Genesis chapter 20. So now we have 10 verses out of Genesis chapter 20 selected. They will be used as your data pool. You can then provide the option to allow students to identify in their exercise, when they're taking the exercise, where the exercise material is coming from. Let's use this for now. You can also hide this, obviously. And we want to provide perhaps a little bit of context, namely showing some sentences that appear before the material that they're tested on, and a sentence that follows. Then you have the option to select random or fixed. If you are choosing fixed, what it will do is it will loop you in the order of the verses. So at first verse 1, then verse 2, then verse 3. So if it's vocab, first words out of verse 1 will be asked, then words out of verse 2, and then words out of verse 3. If you choose random, it's randomized, and there's no way for the student to predict where the next verse is coming from that he or she is working with in this particular vocab exercise. So you could start with verse 1, and the next verse that's being presented to you is verse 8, and then it might be verse 4. So random is random. You can also set up a fixed number of questions that your students need to answer, but I'll leave this blank, and the reason for that will become visible here in a moment. Okay, then you have to start creating your content for the exercise. So you see that we have different sentence unit types. That basically means the different linguistic levels on which you can use in order to ask questions. When you choose word, obviously then you would be able to create morphological exercises or vocab exercises. If you choose phrase, then you would do syntax exercises like students need to answer what's the subject, a predicate, a direct object, and so on. A clause, for example, would be, is this an indirect clause, is this a dependent clause, or is this an independent clause, these types of things. But we wanted to set up here, as we said, a little vocab exercise. So we're going to sentences. We stay on the word level because vocabulary has to do with words. And now we can specify a lot of features that we want to select from. So in our case, we said this is just a simple vocab exercise, and we said I think the 10 most frequently used words we want to ask. So yeah, the 10 most frequently used words are to be presented here in this exercise. So we are going to select now the frequency rank. So frequency rank would mean if we want to have the most frequent 10 most frequent words to be used, it means we want to use number 1 in the frequency rank, which means the most frequently appearing word, and number 10 as our lowest value. So you see the frequency rank needs to be 1 or higher, or it needs to be 10 or lower. That's kind of how this query box is being built by just the choices you're making on the basis of here, the graphical user interface. Okay, now we can go to feature. Under feature, so what we did here, we basically now selected the data pool. We are only going to present words that appear very frequently. In fact, the 10 most frequently used words will appear. Under features, we now define what we want the student to see. For example, we want the student to see the text. Or perhaps we want the student to see the dictionary entry form of the word that they are supposed to provide the English gloss. Let's say English gloss. Yeah, we want them to provide the English gloss. So you see here, request. Under request, you define what you want to ask. In this case, let's say we want to ask English words. Then you can define what you don't want them to see. Perhaps you are teaching a class in a multilingual environment and people might be able to know Danish, German, Dutch, Portuguese, Spanish, Amharic, Swahili. In that case, you can decide don't show any information about the glosses of these other languages. Good. So, and now you can, before you save this exercise, I would always recommend test it. Test it first and see whether it does what you want. So you click on test exercise. Of course, we need to give it first a name. So this is a dummy vocab exercise. Let's give it the number 1. Save. Okay. Here we now testing the exercise. You see the description that we have placed there. This is a simple vocab exercise. You're tested on your vocabulary knowledge of the 10 most frequently appearing Hebrew words. Excellent. And now we should only get access, or we should only be presented with the 10 most frequently used words. So if I go to my view and under words, I could actually see frequency rank. So you see there are words that appear outside of the first 10 most frequently used words. So verse 1, vav is the most frequently appearing word. That's why it's shown here. But this, and this word will obviously not see. Why? Well, because they are appearing in the lower rank of the frequency list. So this case, and let's see where that works. Check answer, we are good. Next. The next word is al. Al, why? Because it appears, it's one of the most frequently used words. It's on the rank 8. It's the 8th most frequently used word in the Hebrew Bible. So that's why it appears here on, let's say. Check answer, show answer. Let's do one more. Well, that's again a vav. Al again. Obviously, there's not much that you can be asked about because there are not many words, hopefully just 10 words that satisfy the condition you have set, 10 most frequently used words. Okay, it looks like this exercise is working well. If you are happy with it, let's also see where the location works. Yeah, now this verse comes from Genesis 20, verse 5. We can go back, have tested it, we are satisfied with it. We can now save the exercise. Give it the name, save, yes. And now you see that we have this first exercise created. You can later edit it, rename it, and download it, upload exercises here, and that's all fine. Let's go now back to our student. Let's bring in our student. The student has enrolled in our class, and let's have that student take that exercise. Now, the student could either go to your folder, in this case it was Andrews University, and then was the dummy folder, and there was this exercise. You see the student has access to that exercise only because you have, under visibility, granted access to that exercise, yeah, to that exercise class demo. So let's go back here to our student. So student, here's a student. And the student is now taking this exercise. You see he can take 5, 10, or 25 questions in this exercise. And I'm now the real student, and obviously I can put here the locate button to see out of which words the test is coming, or the test material is coming. I can check answer, happy about this, le 4, check answer, excellent, and I know that's right, 8. Oh, 8, that's the direct object marker, right? But let's give this another name. Let's call this father. Check answer, I got this wrong. Okay, show answer, it should have been this object marker, direct object marker, OMDO object marker. Many options I could have chosen. I could have just typed in object marker and it would have been correct. That's the article. The check answer. And again, an article. The in. And let's do a mistake. Let's call this after. And let's, well, this is in. Let's call this question. Check answer will be wrong. Now, I, as a student, click on Grade Task. What's happening now? My statistics, my right and wrong answers are sent as statistics to the server, and we can now go back to our student, to our teacher. Here we have the teacher account. As a teacher, I can now go to my data and click on Grade Quizzes. I know I have one student in my class, and that student just took the exercise that I've created. So I'm picking the class that is mine, demo class. And now I select the exercise that I created and that was taken by a student. So dummy vocab. I can choose the grading system in which I want to show the grade. We're here in the US, so let's say US letter grading. And then I can click on OK. You see we have this student glance appear here. And student glance took this exercise and got 70% right. So that would translate into C+. I could now click on the C+, and that will give me access to the detailed answers that the student provided and also to the question that the student actually got. So you see here here's the question, the, le, the, it, and so on. Then the feature that was requested was the English gloss of that word. Then here you see the right and wrong answers. If it got a 1, it means it's the right answer. If it got a 0, it's a wrong answer. And here you see the answers that the student provided. Let's look here at father, and that got a wrong answer. The student should have put in object marker or direct object marker, DOOM or something similar. Then here's another error. The student provided the meaning after, but it should have been and also. And then here was another error. The student should have identified this to be an interrogative, to be an article, but the student provided the wrong answer. So you can see the details by which a student has, or how the student has performed. Now let's go back to this very student again, and let's have the student do this exercise once again. We go to text and exercises, we go to Andrews University, to the dummy folder, and we click this exercise again. So now let's try to do everything right. And to, in, in and which to and in on for to great task. Okay, so the student has taken the same exercise now twice. Statistics are being sent, so we can go back here to our teacher, and the teacher can now go again to grade quizzes, select the class, select the exercise that he or she wants to grade, use letter grading, okay. And you see the one student who took that exercise took it now twice. If you go to details, you see there were 2 runs, a first and a second one. Obviously, the second one was much better, and automatically the exercise overview will show always the best run. A minus. Obviously, there was one word still wrong, so let's click on a minus on the hyperlinked A minus, and we should see quickly 0. Yeah, the last one. L. Should have been toward, not toward. That was my mistake. Okay, good. So that is how you create exercises and how you grade exercises once they have been taken by students. The thing is that most of you teachers will use a learning management system like Moodle. In this case, we are using Moodle at Andrews University. It's called Learning Hub, but it's basically a Moodle-based system. What I would highly suggest is that when you offer exercises to your students, you don't let your students go through the folder system, because they usually get lost and then they complain and they don't know whether they have done the exercise, and they want to get points even though they did exercise that you didn't make available to them. So what I do in those cases, I go to the folder that I own, and I hyperlink the exercise to my learning management system side. So let's say this vocab exercise, let's say I want that student to do not 5, but just 2 slides of vocab questions. You can now define how many they do by changing the integer here at the end. So if I were to do 100, the student would have to answer 100 slides of vocab questions. If I were to do 2, it's just 2. So I'll copy this and I'll go to my learning management system. Let's create here a little link and do this dummy vocab exercise. Click here. And now I hyperlink that link to here. Open a new window. And now you see we have under here a new hyperlinked exercise available for the student. So the student can now just simply click on here, and once you click on here, automatically the exercise will start. So the student does not have to navigate the folder system, identify how many questions he or she wants to answer, or complain because he or she didn't find the right exercise. No, I would just hyperlink this. If you don't use a learning management system, perhaps use something differently, the same system applies. So you can write, for example, here's a Word document, exercise number 1. Let's say this is a simple vocab exercise. Click here. And now you do the same thing here, and then you can provide a hyperlink, copy paste your Bible Online Learner link, and we are good to go. So once the student clicks on this link, automatically the exercise will get started, as you see here. Okay, so we have discussed exercises, we have discussed how to create classes, how to create a folder, how to provide access to your class to that folder, how to populate that folder with, exercises, how to grade your students. Now, what about creating an exam? You can create exams by going to Manage Exams, and under Manage Exams, you can click on Create New Exam. New exam, you now go to the folder that has all the exercises that you want to present to your student or to your class as an exam. Let's go back here to our dummy folder. We just have one exercise here, but let's make an exam out of that exercise. So you select that exercise. You could select several exercises. In fact, let's create another exercise so that we have 2 exercises to demonstrate the exam creation process. So let's call this morphology of the strong verb in perfect. And then let's say we choose here everything to make it simple. We keep on the word level because it's morphology. We want to ask for the stem, and we said in the perfect tense, so the tense is Katal perfect. Okay, so we got this, and then here we say show the text, but what we want to request is, let's say, person, gender, and number. You can define which order those person, gender, number questions are being presented. You can say this is 2, and then perhaps you want to start with gender, and then you want to have person, and then you want to have number, or let's say you want it this way. And so you can create different orders. You can also go here and unselect types of forms that you don't want students to see. Okay, good. So let's test the exercise. We have give it a name to morphology. Okay. Let's test the exercise. Does it do what we want? Let's say verbs. We don't want dual. We know this is Katal, so it will either be singular or plural. We don't want these things to appear here. On the gender, we don't need absent, and on the person it is always first, second, or third. So let's do some changes. We go here under features, and there we say we only want to have these persons, and we gender-wise we only want masculine, feminine, and gender because they are common, because they are the only relevant ones, really. And then when it comes to the number, just show singular and plural. Okay, let's test the exercise again. Perfect, it does exactly what we want. First, second, third, singular, plural, masculine, feminine, common. So let's say we're happy with this exercise. We save it. Save. And now we want to go back to our task, namely create an exam. Let's say in this exam we want to bundle these two exercises into an exam. So once we have selected these exercises, we click on create new exam from marked files and call this dummy exam 0, let's say. Create exam. Now you can determine how many slides the student needs to answer for the vocab exercise and for the morphology exercise. Let's keep it simple. Let's just do 2 slides for each. You can also define the weight of the exam. Right now it's 1:1. That means it's equal weight. 50% of the grade will come out of this and 50% of the grade come out of this. So you can manipulate this to your liking. So if you were to do this, then it would mean 66% of your grade will be determined by the performance of the students on the dummy vocab exercise and just 33 here on this part. But let's keep the default, which is even weight distribution. Let's give this a name. This is a dummy test exam. Save. Now we have set up this exam. We can now make that exam available to our class by clicking on Create Instance. Now our class that we are teaching is this demo class. Now we give this an exam, in this instance a name, your first exam. We can define a starting date. Let's just keep this white open, starting time and end time, and you can define the duration of the exam. Let's say it's just 5 minutes. Okay. So now we have created an exam. You see here we have created this exam, your first exam under the class or for the class Zero Demo class, and the instructor is Oliver Glanz, and this is when the exam can be accessed in this time slot between Monday, November 10 and Wednesday, November 12, and you have 5 minutes to take the exam. You as an instructor could test the exam and see whether it works the way you want. Okay, yeah, once you have done your vocab, should be just 2 sections. We should automatically go to the morphology part. Let's see whether it's, yeah, it's doing it well. Perfect. Okay, we are happy with this. So what we can now do is we can bring up our student and have that student take the exam. So here we go. This is our student. When the student goes to exams, the student should see here the demo class. Here it is. You could also hyperlink again this section. You could use your learning management platform or a Word document. Say, here is your exam. Hyperlink that here if you want. Okay. So now when you click on the here, automatically the web browser will bring the student to the exam overview. Okay, so we are the student of this class. Let's take this exam. We should see that we have 5 minutes. It's 4 minutes, 56 seconds, and so on. The timer is running. We can locate the text. That's how we defined it as a teacher. Let's now quickly take this exam. And we should have just 2 slides. These were the 2 times end. Now we should get to morphology, also 2 slides, because that's how we defined it. You see it here on the side. This is a dummy exam. Total number of questions are 4. Total number of exercises are 2. In the first exercise you have 2 questions, and the second exercise you have 2 questions. Our tem, so that's masculine, plural, second person. Next, hayeta, that is masculine, singular, second person. Oh well, let's do something wrong here. Let's call this common, because we want to have an error that we can then inspect as a teacher. And let's do this plural, finish section. So we are done with the exam. Exam complete. We can now go back to our teacher account, which is here, and go to My Data Grade Exams. We choose our class, demo class. We select the exam, your first exam. We choose the grading system. Let's, for the fun, choose here the German grading system. Okay. And now we see the exam has been taken by 2 people, obviously by me as a teacher, who just did a little test, and then it was taken by the student Glanz. You see that the total score is 75%, which translates in the German grade 3. Or let's change the system and have the US letter grade. You can see it would be a B minus, 75%. So obviously we had 4 questions, so I must have answered 1 question wrong. We can go to details, and there you see. For the first part of the exam, which was the dummy vocab part, we got everything right, a straight A. And for the second part, morphology, we only got half of them right. So if I click now on the hyperlinked grade, I should see the exact entries that the student has provided. See, okay, for after tem, our tem, sorry, we had the gender right, the number right, and the person right. But for Hayeta, we had anything wrong here on the feminine and on the gender, on the number, and the person front. So this is how the grading of exercises and here exams will be processed by the Bible Online Learner. I hope that was helpful. See you in another tutorial. Bye.